What helped me with my confidence in sales back at that time, more, at least the thing that comes to mind for me, is that I hired a coach early in my career. So after that sales seminar, I sold some houses, made some money, and I continued living like a poor college kid. And I would use whatever money I made to kind of invest in myself and in my ability to keep this thing going. And so one of the first things I did was I hired a coach, and I paid this coach $12,000 for 1 year. And they would talk to me for 30 minutes a week, same time every week.
Was that coach or still a coach?
His name was Rick, and he's still a coach, but I don't think he coaches in sales. I think he's more coaching on more life development stuff today. But back then, Rick helped me. I thought this idea of scripts really bothered me. I was like, I can talk to people. I know how to have a conversation with somebody. I don't need scripts. And he helped me to realize, or maybe I realized after failing enough times, that people ask the same questions. They provide the same objections to the things that you're asking them to do. And, having a well thought through strategic response is smart. And being able to be confident in that response that you need to give whenever somebody brings that objection up is it's just a smart thing to do. And so what my coach helped me to do is he helped me to realize all of the objections, all of the things that were going to come up. And he helped me process through what would be an appropriate way to respond when that thing comes up that's going to help me continue to get to the next step. And, I was going on listing appointments against 15, 16 other real estate agents at the time. I mean, it was
wow,
the most competitive thing I have ever done in business probably back then. And you're the 12th out of 16 people that are going to show up. And how are you going to take that listing? You don't leave without having it signed, basically, was kind of my mentality going in. And in order to do that, you had to really know the objections that were going to come at you and really be prepared to respond to them. And I think that I can very specifically remember being in listing appointments where they would respond with an objection that I had planned and prepared for, and I would give my response back, and they'd go, okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. And they would just move on right on forward. And I just remember the feeling of delivering on this thing I had practiced on and it working. It's just made me lean in even more and realize I got this. And it just instilled a lot more confidence.
For those that are listening, we script practice for other things too. We just might not have a written script that we're reading off of, and we're not practicing with a friend or something, but we repeat these things that we're going to say over and over and over again, and then when we need to use them, we will say them.
Yeah.
Think about this. You're 21. I'm Tim Heyl, the realtor. At what point did you establish the group?
My real estate team.
The team.
Yeah. It was kind of organic, but I'd say around 2011, 2012. 2010 was my first full year, and that's the year I was speaking about. In 2011, I started picking up. I think I did 3 times my goal in my second year. It's so actually my coach told me, I told them my goal of what I wanted to do. I said I had I'd mapped out this 13-year plan to make $1 million in a year, but not have a full-time job in the business. That was my 13-year plan.
Yes.
My coach said, and I had my 1-year plan, which was to make the $100,000. And I felt like that was where I needed to be on track for my 13-year plan. And he said, you may be underwhelmed at what you accomplish in the next 12 months, but you will far exceed what you think you can accomplish in the next 5 years. And that really stuck with me. And that was very true in my life. My 13-year plan, I outblew that plan by a long shot where I had told myself I needed to be by year 5. But my first year, I fell way short. And I just had no idea how fast this thing could really grow. My second year in the business, I hired a part-time assistant. And then my third year in the business, made that person full-time, hired another assistant, and brought on a agent to show buyers property. So that
your friend?
Well, the agent was somebody I met through here at the market center, but my part-time assistant was a friend of mine. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody told me a long time ago, when you're young, and this is these are hard things to skip in life, because, for my kids, I would like for them to skip maybe at least one of these phases, but that most people are motivated by money, power, and fame. And at some point in their life, typically first, and then some people graduate to being more motivated by impact, and some people eventually graduate to being more motivated by legacy and building a legacy. And I'm sure there's lots of other frameworks to think about this, but that really clicked for me. Because in retrospect, I'm only 36 years old, but most of my 20s was kind of a money, power, fame, mostly money, being broke and not having a job and having that chip on my shoulder, mostly money. But, I think that money, power, and fame thing in my 20s was a big driver for me. And, when I in my late 20s, I started journaling a lot. And I remember when I turned 30, a big part of my journaling was about the things that motivated me before were less motivating to me today. And the things that were starting to motivate me were much more wholesome things. And, not to say that I stopped being motivated by money or by any of these other things, but it really started to shift. And I started to have much more conscious awareness of that shift. And I think part of it was being married and having kids. I think part of it was having made money, but that really started to shift for me as I kind of exited my 20s, entered my 30s.
I like how you said the word graduated. You graduate to, what was the word that you used? Money, power, fame, and then what was
impact.
And then legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, I think it's like, I use that word because, I think about my kids and I want them to skip this like drive for money, power, and fame. And certainly not everybody goes through that, but I think that it can be a hard thing to try and convince somebody to skip. It's sort of like there's a lot of things in life that you just have to work through yourself. And for me, there wasn't anybody that could have told me when I was 21 years old that life would be so much better if you just focus on making an impact on other people's lives. There probably wasn't any guidance that could have been instilled in me that would have had me skip this like drive to make money when I was 21 and broke.
Yeah. So when you're 20, what about the money?
What about it?
What would, let's say I want to make a lot of money, right? This is the thought that you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
What would it do for you? What happens when you get it?
Well, it did a lot
and
for
what?
me. It did a lot for me, actually.
Yeah. What was the story that you were telling yourself? Oh, when I get the money, I'm going to be like this or I'm going to do that. What was that?
For me, so fortunately, I had a lot of great mentors in my 20s. I would say where I spent a lot of time prior to my 20s kind of floating a little bit. In my 20s, I had a lot of really great mentors. And one of them, and really key mentor that really changed my life, is Gary Keller. And in this office, in a room downstairs, I probably a year or a couple of years after that sales training I went to a class that he does called Quantum Leap. And Quantum Leap was all about self-leadership, how to lead and guide yourself in the key areas of your life, whether it be spiritual, physical, key relationships, your career, with money. And for the first time in my life, I kind of broke out those buckets and I started asking myself, what does success look like for me in this bucket? What do I want my life to look like? What are the values I want to have? What are the goals I want to achieve in each of these buckets? And also from Gary Keller, I learned a lot about leverage. He always says, money is good for the good that it can do. Well, a way that connected for me in my 20s is money will help me leverage my time. And if I can leverage my time, I can do more of these things. And so in my 20s, most of where I spent my money was on leverage. That could have been from hiring somebody to help me clean my house, all the way to hiring employees, to anything that helped me to continue to do the things that I did best, that brought the most value to the thing I was trying to accomplish, so that I didn't have to do the other things. Money was very valuable for me. I wasn't out buying boats and cars and silly stuff. I was reinvesting the money in having people come and help me to do the things that had to get done that probably wouldn't have been the best use of my time if I wanted to continue down the path I was on. And by doing that, it was incredibly valuable because it allowed me to keep hammering on the one thing that was causing my success and just keep doubling down on that over and over again without letting everything else fall apart.